Phew. I think that's it. It's not. Sure, it's not. That's what I'm on, dum dum. Tripod fell over. It's ready to head shot now. The holder. Really good tripod. Antique. That's why it's heavy as hell. New tripods, man, they're feather light. Made like shit. Look at them, they fall over. It's heavy.
While these journalists were caught in the middle of the mayhem, only minutes after the first landing, words on the radio shake the world. These words, radio anchor Ned Calmer of CBS breaks the news of the landings to the American people at 6:42 a.m. Northern, 42 minutes after midnight, New York. The news breaks worldwide 22 minutes after the first men set roots on the ground at Oklahoma, just almost 3 hours ahead of Eisenhower's planned release. Turns out that the Allies have been spooked by an unexpected surge. Nazi control German international news agency, Transocean. Right. Transocean gets that news from the Wehrmacht news agency. They're
They just don't wait for permission by their bosses at the propaganda ministry and foreign office, but put it on their wire as soon as they get it, 8 minutes before 6:30.
Now, this is not as astonishing as one might think. Translation has been afforded a lot of freedom to transmit news bulletins at the judgment. It is to cut red tape so that the German news agency provides scoops ahead of other agencies to gain a competitive advantage, become a widely used source.
And then the Nazis can insert their propaganda into that feed. The fake news is stream of actual news. Clever.
Yes, today the news is although the stations keep cautioning that it's coming from one belligerent, it is unconfirmed by the Allies. In any case, the first broadcasters to pick up the German is the Swiss radio at 6:30. This half hour, the news spreads like wildfire across the people, except in Great Britain. BBC and the rest of the press stay true to the embargo British said. Another problem in Europe, itself, news is also not broadcast. Even listening to short-wave radio from America after the countries soon pick up on the news, starts spreading quickly by one.
So, as this hour ends, the Allies are pouring onto the beaches in wave after wave. Eisenhower's words in his briefing to the men are already becoming reality.
Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the greatest stage, towards which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere watch with you. Shortly after 1 a.m. wartime, the Berlin radio makes this announcement. Quote, here is a special bulletin. Early this morning, the long-awaited release of American invasion began when parachutes landed in the area of the Sonnex Cliff. The harbor of our Havre, the Berlin broadcast went on, is being fiercely bombarded at the present moment. The naval forces of the German Navy are off the coast fighting with enemy landing vessels. We have just brought you a special bulletin. End quote. That was the German radio bulletin, the AP report. It was heard by Columbia's shortwave listening station at the beginning of Berlin's 1 a.m. Eastern wartime news broadcast to North America. It was completed in the middle of the program, and there is no confirmation from any Allied source. In fact, the War Department of Washington says it has absolutely no information on these German radio reports. Here's a bulletin from London. Shortly before 1 a.m. Eastern wartime, the BBC broadcast the Allied High Command's urgent instructions to Holland, advising all people living within 18 miles of the coast to leave their homes immediately, and also to keep off roads, railways, and prisons. This may have been another of the series of instructions the Allied High Command was given the people of Europe. The Germans controlled Paris radio at 12:45 Eastern wartime did not mention any invasion in its news bulletin. The Associated Press reported the German radio broadcast with the same so-called invasion.
7 a.m. on D-Day, and no paratroopers have landed at the Somme estuary, but many have in western Normandy. And by now, half a dozen planes and landing craft have already beached their men on the U.S. First Army's beaches, Utah, and Omaha.
Now comes the British and Canadian Second Army landings further east. There's so much happening at once that we're not to let you follow movements without interruption. First, we turn to the Rangers and their attack over 1 p.m.
The landing craft of one of those three companies coming in on the east flank of Pointe-d'Or instead of approaching the tip from the front. The original plan to land on both sides is no longer realistic. So Rudder decides all three will land on the east side of the pond. So dog, easy. Rock company landing craft get into position to land along a strip of rocky beach about 500 by 30 meters. As I said, the beach has been eliminated and hardened, and the high shell holes, the mounds and heaps of earth and stone torn from the cliff face present serious obstacles to the landing. The duck bees are basically useless. None of them can get close enough to the base of the cliff, so they cannot use the extension ladders. This did not deter the enterprising staff sergeant William him on Stevenson from extending his ladder 90 feet, climbing up, and hosing the Germans with the twin Lewis guns mounted on top. Swinging precariously like a metronome, he fired his weapons in the general direction of his foes. The would have caught the odd glimpse of the unfortunate Rangers swinging through 45 degrees. A surreal, if not comic, sight. The first craft to land is runners. The landings go off between 7:05 and 7:08, and they are nearly 40 minutes behind schedule. This brings with it most of the problems. For starters, the Germans had 45 minutes to recover from the naval bombardment, but also the Rangers are supposed to send out the code word crowbar when they land, bingo when they have time to launch. It's all planned. They called for Schneider and the other Ranger companies to wait until 7 for the signal to come, right? No signal has been received by 7 though. Schneider is to head over and land at Omaha Dog Beach, and then overland, destroy the guns and walk you off from that side. Knowing how critical reinforcements might be to the three assault companies though, 7, Schneider delayed, hoping for the signal that a successful landing has been made. No signal comes because Rudder's crew is under heavy fire and has just begun the climb. There's also the fact that the radio sets are waterlogged and won't work until they've been taken apart and dried out. So, having received no signal, Schneider heads eastward towards the beach. As for Rudder, the destruction of the cliff may have made the landings more difficult, but it does make the climb easier. And though Rudder has lost a lot of men, gains 2 more. Those 2 paratroopers crouching in Gulf who bailed out of their C-47 hours ago. He's also got 3 British divers from the ladder's underneath. They've abandoned their usual ships. They joined the Rangers for the climb. They'll even go back down under fire and ammo runs low and get machine guns later. 7:15. Satterlee provides close fire support against German troops appearing along the cliff. As for the climb itself, attempts to scale the cliff and change projectors on the LCA had mixed results. The long trip to the beach, the heavy swell, soaked most of the ropes and made them heavier than usual. As a result, when the rockets were fired, the grapnels often failed to reach the top of the cliff. Of the 54 J projectors on the LCAs, only 19 grapnels successfully launched over the first edge. So that's a problem. But on the other hand, the gouges in the cliffs caused by the shelling allow the men to use the metal ladders they brought along. And also, some of the grapnels just do reach the top as burning fuses. The Germans don't cut the ropes because they need their explosives. Overall, German resistance to the actual landings is relatively high, partly from the casualties inflicted by the bombardment and the naval gunfire, plus displacement of many of the gun crews outside the perimeter to the south. And with Satterlee now blasting any sign of movement, some enemy troops remain in craters or trenches and just lob grenades over the cliff. So in general, even with wet and slippery roads, the men make the climb easily enough. First, the fighting at the top is sporadic. At the tip of the front, those men from DZ Company engage the observation post, which is not been damaged and whose occupants are firing machine guns. 3 grenades through the observation and firing slits make the machine gun stop firing. The small arms fire continues. Meanwhile, without knowing of each other's presence, more of DZ Company is attacking the observation post from the opposite side. They have driven a German who's been throwing grenades under the cliffs under cover, and after hearing the Germans make radio calls, shoot the radio antenna off the top of the OP, thus isolating it. Those last up the ropes hurry to join their companies. The Rangers breaking the groups at the top to assault each of the guns. We are there thanks to the maps and photographs they used for training. The guns are not there. 7:28. Radio communication is established between Satterlee and the Rangers. From then until the evening, the log of the Satterlee is a repetition recital of commence firing and cease firing, target destroyed. The U.S. Navy report states the longest interval between salvos during the day is a 20-minute pause when the crew tried to EPA rations. Before they finished, the Rangers had again called for shelling, and the deal was interrupted. Other heavier equipment than the radio soon makes it ashore and up the cliff. At 7:45, Rudder moves his command post from the base of the cliff to a shell crater at the top. The doctor does the the same for the aid station, though a medic is left on the beach to help those seriously wounded in the evacuation in town from above. It is total chaos on Omaha Beach. 3 companies have been cut down in the blink of an eye, and many survivors paralyzed by the sudden eruption of carnage. Some run forward, trying to get to the end of the beach, while others drop behind beach obstacles to find some cover. The tide is rising, so these obstacles will soon be submerged. One thing that somewhat saves 2 companies from the 116th from annihilation is the heavy smoke from the burning grass ignited by the naval bombardment. Another is that unlike to the west at Beerville, the German pillboxes of Moulin have been built perpendicular to the advance, which means they are incapable of delivering the devastating flanking fire. Also, one thing the men of Company A totally lacked was the support of tanks. Here at Moulin, the Shermans of the 743rd Tank Battalion moving in and returning fire. Men follow close behind them, trying to find cover behind the armor from which the bullets ping. Those lucky enough to make it to the end of the beach huddle down at the base of the embankment. The shingle here raised to 2 meters high and offers at least some cover from enemy rifle fire. But as soon as the Germans can train their mortars on the closely huddled groups of men, there will be more casualties. The tanks are not the game changer that everyone is hoping for, and so many of them did not even reach the beaches. And as long as the Germans have their anti-tank guns in place, those machines are easy prey as they move slowly over the soft sand. 4 tanks were moving in single file parallel to the beach. Suddenly one of them burst into flames. An instant later a second, and then the third was afire. The 4th one backed up and returned to the water's edge. I actually saw the steam, not smoke, from the machine gun that was fired at our duck feed from the top of the hill behind the beach. Officers of B Company are trying to get their men to move along the shingle to the beach sector on their right, thinking that if they get to their planned landing point between Beerville and Le Moulin, they might have a better chance. The Germans see this and lay down heavy fire. There's no room to maneuver. With a seemingly invincible enemy atop the bluffs, holding the commanding heights on either side of Le Moulin, there is little they can do but hide in the shingle embankment. Soon the follow-up waves of the 116th will arrive. But will this kickstart the assault, or just worsen an unforeseen disaster? I mean, the enemy here is not actually that far away beyond the embankment. Just a grenade throw, really. From inside a 3-story building, the Germans scan the beach ahead of them. A machine gun fires from one of the lower stories, with bullets spraying just above the heads of the Americans at the embankment. Storming the building head-on would be the only option. Even that has been made possible by 2 coils of tightly strung barbed wire still totally intact. At the same time, the eastern end of Omaha, the 16th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Division is still engaged in a desperate and increasingly hopeless struggle for the Columbia withdrawal. The German positions are simply too strong, set up in unreachable and barely visible positions on top of the lengthy bluffs. Like the crescent of a sickle, they enjoy an almost perfect field for crossfire. No American can make a move without the defenders noticing. The mission of the 16th is straightforward. Cross the beach and seize the Saint Laurent and Columbia withdrawals. Any remaining opposition after the bombardment needs to be eliminated. Straightforward. Here as well, much now depends on the failed results of the bomber squadron, as Omaha's eastern side provides even less cover than the 116th is trying to use in the west. Seeing it unfold, under the second wave at Omaha is pretty much universal, though. Confirming and wrecked LCTs often further bar the still uncleared lanes of the beach. Many men drop into the chilling water as they step off their landing ramp or hurl themselves over the edges of their craft. This is especially cumbersome and dangerous for the heavy weapon squads and mortar teams, who are often unable to carry their waterlogged equipment to the water's edge. They also must wade among the many floating dead as the waves of the rising tide begin to push further up the beach. Around 45 minutes after 8 hours, the first bits of information about what is happening at the shoreline filter back to command. They speak of unexpectedly tough German resistance, of the complete failure of the Air Force to destroy or sabotage the invasion site, off the rafts. It's tough to see much of what is going on in front of you, but there are bodies, lots of bodies, and there will be more as the men of the second wave exit their ships and immediately come under heavy fire from an unseen enemy, entrenched somewhere on those bluffs beyond the beach. When the ramp went down, mortar shells were hitting on both sides of us. Machine guns were all over the top of us, just like we were in a bee's nest. The captain was the first man to get off the boat. He was hit on the ramp and fell into the water. Sergeant Wright was next up, followed by the first aid man. I was fourth off the boat. The sea was rough, the ramp banged up and down, and I caught my heel and went over the side into the water. When I got up, Captain Zappacosta was up and calling to me, "I'm hit!" He went down, and I did not see him come up. To this day, I have found no one who got off that boat alive but me, and I have looked everywhere. Some of the better Royal Navy LCAs have been briefed for such an emergency in the face of the enemy fire ahead of them. They maneuver their vessel to the side, trying to find the softer spot to land. It is such flexibility that is very much needed at Omaha. And there are some lucky landings within all this carnage as well. One single boat from 16th Infantry Company D was separated from the other 5 landing craft, as I said before, and was beached halfway between the Saint Laurent and Colville Broad. Driven on by enemy machine gun fire, the boat team under 2nd Lieutenant John Spaulding hastily sprinted toward the shingle. Here they are secure, at least temporarily, but soon must make a fateful decision. To stay, to make the work close. An hour into the invasion, the situation in the west demands a decision too. Things don't look good in any of Omaha's sectors, but that of the 116th Infantry opposite the Beerville Broad is desperate. Better parts of 3 companies have been destroyed, and there are no reports that any effort can be undertaken to clear the beach obstacles there before the rising tide makes that impossible. Is there any point in bringing in more landing craft to that sector? The beachmasters of the Navy decide no. It's fruitless, suicidal even, to keep directing more men to this killing zone. Any further landings toward the Beerville Broad are to be immediately suspended. On the one hand, this does of course prevent unnecessary deaths, but this also means that the men already stranded there on John Reed's sector will be left on their own. The 29th Division begins immediately rerouting their units. Company C of the 116th is diverted 1,000 meters further to the east towards Dog Right. Here, 200 men under Captain Verdier Hawks come in between the Beerville and Le Boulon-Cross. However, as the boats near touchdown, the surf makes them violently rise and plunge, craft teeter, and then turn on their sides, spilling men and equipment into the water. All the heavy equipment, flamethrowers, demolition charges, Bangalore torpedoes, all lost. The surviving men suddenly find themselves on a small beach, not even 100 meters wide, and directly under some of Omaha's most daunting bluffs. Captain Hawks comes to the conclusion, to get off the beach, they have to get off the bluff. Sure, this will be anything but easy as the bluffs are a natural deterrent, but the Germans will most likely think this as well. So the defenses will be much lighter at the top. Hoping this is true, Company C begins climbing the bluffs. So the first hour at Omaha Beach has not gone well, with so much chaos and confusion caused by the ferocity of the unanticipated German resistance, and with the men on the beach left without the means to deal with these defenses. The realization that the first wave at Utah Beach has not landed where they were supposed to presents not just a minor inconvenience. This might jeopardize the whole plan. The 8th Regiment has a pre-planned route to the Northway and to reach certain objectives and landmarks according to a specific timetable. I mean, it's the first hour of the invasion that is most critical, and not just for the soldiers and sailors, but for the engineers and logistical troops as well, whose job it is to expand the beachhead, set up an actual landing zone, and build roads and communications inland. Subsequent waves also run on tight schedules, and shifting the whole invasion zone to a different place might throw everything into disarray, even without the interference of the enemy. Not to mention, paratroopers are expecting them to land further north, opposite Causeways 3 and 4, not 1 and 2, as they have done. There was a by the seawall, where none should have been, only in the right place. It was imperative that I should find out where we were in order to set the maneuver. I scrambled up on the dunes, and was lucky finding a windmill which I recognized, and put ashore a mile too far to the south. The first waves in Utah Beach are indeed far further to the south than planned, around 1,000 to 1,500 meters to the left, most likely caused by a blend of human and natural interference. This means currently planned routes to reverse maneuvers are no longer valid. However, the essential premise of the plan hasn't changed. The GIs still have to get off the beach and still have to reach the causeway. The question that presents itself to the junior officers on the ground is now twofold. Should they march northwards and try to relocate themselves to the landing zone intended, or should they adapt the plan to the situation at hand and simply move inland from where they are now, and take the initiative and move inland towards the causeway, ready to eliminate any enemy opposition in their path? The men quickly ascend the steep avenue and encounter the first enemy face to face. In and around the surviving pillboxes, the Germans set up some makeshift resistance nests and machine guns. This is men of the 9th Division, a third-rate outfit at best. Most of them are still stunned by the preliminary bombardment, and now they find themselves isolated and about to be overwhelmed by their enemy. Most of their heavy weapons destroyed, and without any hope for reinforcements or any support by the Luftwaffe, they are not that motivated to resist for long. The Americans also begin blowing gaps in the barbed wire with manual torpedoes, destroying pillboxes with satchel charges, firing bazooka rounds against bunkers. The coast defenses here are concentrated on 5 strong points in a checkerboard pattern. 3 of these are placed directly on and just behind the ship. The other 2 are likely set up to back. In theory, these strong points are connected by trenches and sealed off by barbed wire and minefields. The preliminary bombardment has, however, destroyed much of this cohesion. Still, highly motivated, permanent supply defenders could have made an assault on the strong points very costly and very time-consuming for the attacker. This is not the case here. The 709th Fortress Division quickly crumbles as the 8th Regiment infiltrates their position. Spearheaded by Company B and F from the 2nd Battalion under Lieutenant Colonel Caldwell Daly, these 600 GIs make short work of the defenders of the 2 southern strong points. As soon as the Germans saw us coming over the seawall, they started firing mortars and 88s at us. We deployed out. Scouts were out ahead. CO. 2 houses just ahead of us with snipers. Germans with BARs. As I was moving back, the 3rd wave was coming in, and the 1st hits as well. About 25 or 30 of them. Company F continues to advance further inland. Their next target is a strong point located on a small farm known as La Dune. Again, the Germans do not put up much of a fight before being overwhelmed. A group of the enemy surrendered, walking out with their hands up. These were the first we had ever seen. They were armed to the hilt, so I pulled out my trench knife, seeking to cut all their web equipment from their bodies. One German soldier hit the panic button and ran toward the beach. I suppose half the company put bullets into him, thinking he was trying to get away. Although the whole invasion plan is immensely complex and detailed, as you can see, on the ground here, it comes down to pushing forward until they reach the end of the beach. And once companies B and H have landed, the 2nd Battalion is nearly full strength, and the Americans set out to do exactly that. Companies E and F will turn and head inland, moving parallel to the coast for about 700 meters. Companies G and H will take out the 3rd major strong point, a place called Beaujolais. Beaujolais is another large farm. Here, Germans are much more willing to put up a fight. Company G under Captain Haley finds itself immediately under machine gun fire and blocked by a minefield, but after a display of superior firepower, were able to overcome the enemy. By now, Sherman tanks have reached the beach in considerable numbers, and since there isn't really a target for them to shoot at there, they begin moving over the shallow surf and towards the seawall. Once a path is opened by the 237th Engineer Battalion, tanks begin moving down towards the beach exit, which will eventually lead them towards Saint-Marie du Mont. At 7:30, Sherman remaining 3 German strongpoints and then pushing northward towards the causeways, made contact with the airborne units. In trying to capture Saint-Marie du Mont, the Americans are in for a fight. All throughout these past early morning hours, paratroopers from the 101st have been pretty heavily engaged in and around the town, street to street, house to house, desperately trying to wrest control from the stubborn defenders. Even the gloomy interior of the ancient church of Église Notre Dame has seen violent eruptions of gunfire and hand grenades, but at the same time, just outside of Saint-Marie-du-Mont, the hedgerows, apple orchards, and the outskirts, there is an equal amount of small unit action, since the airborne troops here are trying to develop the enemy from the side. A double development. Here, the German artillerymen of the 91st place themselves in 3 independent fighting positions. These are located in a semicircle north, west, and south of Saint-Marie-du-Mont. Each has a battery of 4 105mm howitzers that can fire straight onto Utah Beach. It is now the job of Robert 6 506 PIR to silence these guns as quickly as possible. But remember, trying to find defense and has only assembled a small fraction of his headquarters units and William Thomas First Battalion. His 3rd Battalion, whose commander Wilson died before reaching the ground,
All I gotta do is, you famous Mr. Beast ain't got shit on me.
no idea what's going on. He also has no idea about the whereabouts of Robert Schrader's 2nd Battalion, whose actual orders it is to assault and capture Saint-Marie-du-Mont. They landed several kilometers to the north, left without much of a choice. Now must accomplish what he can with the small remnants of the 1st Battalion, an outfit originally designated as the Regimental Reserve for Unanticipated Emergencies. Well, this is about as much of an emergency as it can get. 3 batteries they are about to assault are not located on any of their maps. Allied intelligence failed to spot them before. The Germans have done well camouflaging their existence from the eyes of recon planes, and it isn't until the first paratroopers literally stumble upon them they are aware of the strong German presence outside Saint-Marie-du-Mont. After some recon of its own, singles out the battery west of the town as their first objective, called Golden after the small hamlet nearby. This battery is near a couple of stone farmhouses, which give the Americans a clear target. Around 75 men of Company C move into attack from as many sides as possible. Our machine guns were set up in the road, one belt fired into position. The fire caused the German gun crews to leave their pieces and take cover in the surrounding ditches. The howitzers were thereafter not fired by the enemy. 2 flanking elements moved forward, and the machine gun firing short bursts. Both flanking units crossed the road at the same time and advanced towards the entrances to the ditch, throwing grenades. The enemy threw grenades back. The defenders gave little resistance once the trench was entered, because the blast of the rockets from one point and continual concussion of grenades from the other took most of the fight out of the artillerymen. Later, we found the bodies of several parachutists who had landed within the enemy position. Although the German artillerymen had the advantage of entrenched positions, they have faithfully neglected to do their own reconnaissance. Their lack of enemy scouts allows the Americans to close in on them and attack from different sides at the same time. Right for the batteries is actually an excellent case study of small unit infantry tactics. The 60 Germans defending the area had all pulled back to within the gun position. The force started a double envelop, Patch moving around one flank with half the men, while Raunstein and the remaining men started to sweep around the hedgerows on the other. But while they were busy this turning movement, and with the pursuit opened up with a battery firing from a hedgerow directly in front of the guns. The rockets hit among the men and ammunition with terrible effect. All fight guided the survivors. The 2 groups under Patch and Raunstein were able to close in and destroy them with rifle fire. The ditch behind the guns was choked with enemy dead. The ground was overwhelmed. With the battery and Longview under attack, some men from the 506 PIR keep the German units inside the town occupied. Mortar rounds rain down on the town center, one even destroying the steeple dome of the church, from which the defenders are reportedly directing their artillery fire. Also, at the same time. Another mixed bag of American paratroopers enters the city of Southport, Illinois. Surprise, surprise, these men, unmarked straders of Officer 2nd Battalion, finally arriving at the scene. This small group spent the night escaping the marshy pasture sound of altitude and began following the road towards the high ground at the village of Le Grand Chemin. They have now spotted the German artillery position close to the old manor house named Report, around a kilometer north of South of Illinois. A small detachment of 11 men, under First Lieutenant Dick Winters, sent into the car to flush the enemy out. First thing I did was have everybody drop all equipment except ammunition and grenades. That's all we need if things went good or bad. Then I placed one of my 2 machine guns in a position where he could give us a little cover of fire as we went more or less in his position. We'll see soon enough. Six airport divisional signals from Le Barge-Marville managed to make contact with 1st Corps at 7:16 a.m. Live contact with 4th Brigade. 7:55, they established contact with the frigate. By 7 a.m., the British 3rd Division was landing at Sword Beach. Not just yet. And the big naval gunfire had lifted, start counting on count, and ropes passing over the company's position. They sounded so big, Howard says, and big, more bloody infantry. They'd never been under naval fire before, and those damn great shells came sailing over, such a size that you automatically ducked, even in the pillbox as one went over. My radio operator was standing next to me, very perturbed about this. And finally, Corporal Chapman said, "Blimey, sir, they're firing jeeps." The attacks on the beaches are underway. The beaches operation is very much connected to the landings on Sword Beach. 7:20, and the naval bombardment on the whole of Sword. 5th East Yorkshire's 6th Green Howards, 69th Brigade's assault battalions soon will begin making rough landings from heavy seas. They are also hit by snipers and mortars. 4 teams of obstacle clearance units from the land clear beach and shallow obstacles. They wear wetsuits and carry explosives. 7:25, beach hour and gold. The aerial and naval bombardment, which should have knocked out the defenses of Les Hamel, fails completely, with the result that heavy opposition is met from strong points on the seawall. Very few underwater obstacles have been cleared, with the result that many landing craft are damaged and beached far out, causing heavy losses of vehicles. 7:30, the troops are really hitting the beaches now. The TVs are supposed to be the vanguard, but they're released much closer to the shore than the planned 5 kilometers because of rough and choppy seas, so they're delayed quite a bit and causes instant confusion at the sea. They reach the beach at the same time as the infantry, and just ahead of all the specialized armor from 79th Armored Division. Another reason why the enemy positions are still well defended. All of these crafts jostle together for landing space and move alarmingly through the underwater obstacles which are woven through the surface of the water. The orderly lines of craft that plowed relentlessly toward the French shore for the past 6 miles now broke up as each vessel made its own final run-in and attempted to touch down safely. Here and there, craft hit mines mounted on poles. Great water spouts shot up from beneath the ships. Others swung crazily over as steel hedgehogs ripped jagged holes in their hulls. All around them, the air sipped and crackled with bullets as the Germans opened fire on the invaders. On June 3, 900-meter stretch of sand just east of Les Hamel. First Hampshires are on the right, and First Dorsets on the left. Their orders are to capture the beach and move inland, as you may guess. It isn't that easy. The Hampshires are to swing west and take Les Hamel and Asnel. Dorsets to hit the Custom House strong point and sweep around to the high ground overlooking our line. Captain Ford sums up the actual situation in reality in one sentence. As the landing craft approached the beach, it soon became clear that something had gone badly wrong. See, 231st Brigade expects to land on a beach, make their strong points, and taken care of. But the Hampshires and Dorsets take heavy fire immediately. The DP tanks are supposed to be blasting a path for the infantry too, but they're still either slowly wading ashore around obstacles or getting out of the way of the landing craft. The Hampshires land companies A and B close to their roquette, right near the customs house. So they now attack what's supposed to be day. There are also tugboats with machine guns and mortars all over them. So the Germans there are safe behind concrete and have a big field of fire. 7:35. First troops of Royal Engineer British squads reached the beach, as well as Churchill aviary tanks, Sherman flail tanks, and armored bulldozers, goal for clearing minefields and obstacles. So the LCTs are now landing. Most of them land partially east of their designated landing zone. One does land where it's supposed to, but it's hit by the big gun at Le Hamel, shooting off its bow. The leading aviary carrying a roly-poly tries to disembark anyhow. Roly-poly hits an obstacle, which jams in, and the aviary in the exit from the craft. Roly-polies are carried on top of aviaries, and they're dropped to unroll and lay a track over soft ground, so the aviaries don't sink. They use steel roller shuttering. Roberts do the same thing, using reinforced fabric matting. They also have aviaries that carry fascines, bundles of rods or sticks, also to be put down for the vehicles to pass over ditches, craters, and stuff like that. Tanks are drowning in the water or destroyed on the beach. One Sherman craft does manage to flail its way through the dunes into the lateral rope, but when it turns toward Le Hamel, 75 knocks get out too. The Germans also have inland artillery helping out as well, including 88mm guns from afar. They turn the beast into an inferno. And at 7:50, companies C and D land right in it. C on the right, D on the left. It is total chaos. Lieutenant Colonel Nelson Smith, the commanding officer, is hit twice, so he's evacuated. Major Martin, second in command, has not landed yet, so Major Mora takes charge. Spoiler, when Major Martin makes it ashore 2 hours from now, he is killed immediately by a sniper. But there are other important casualties as well. Forward observation officer from the support ships is wounded, as is a field artillery battery command, so they have no way of calling in fire support from destroyers or from the self-propelled artillery circling around the whole floor. The aviaries on the beach all seem to have been knocked out. We did not find the gaps we expected. The beach was raked with enfilading fire, and there was an anti-tank gun in a concrete and steel emplacement in Le Hamel. The Germans did not show much sign of giving up. I realized we had to gap our way through ourselves. Using Bangalores, which we had with us, casualties began to pile up. While gapping our way off the beach, I saw the officer commanding limping badly. He told me to take command of the battalion. A company should have landed close to Le Hamel, climb the seawall, silence the opposition, and almost cease to exist. The first Dorsets have the opposite of the Hampshire Club, not landing right in front of the guns where they were supposed to, but to the east. Still taking heavy fire though, again, from that 75 gun on Le Hamel. As armor support, they have C Squadron from Sherwood Rangers who lose 7 tanks in the surf and at the beach. Aviaries from 6th Assault Regiment RE, flails from Westminster Dragoons that have all sorts of problems and destruction of their own. One flail, one aviary, both managed to set off mines while trying to create an exit lane from the beach, blocking the free zone. Dorsets do manage to get on the beach quicker than the Hampshire zone. They cross the ocean ground and will form up behind their roquette. The plan is to bypass Le Hamel and head for Poole. We'll see more of this over the coming hour. As for the landings on Cape Red, the leading elements come ashore beginning at 7:30. Now, the EVA support was supposed to be launched at 6:40, so they'd have 50 minutes to get to shore for the infantry. But it was just too late to launch the EVs at all, so they land them right on the beach. The LCTs carrying the armor approach the beach in single file, sort of, and there's not nearly as much concentrated enemy fire during landing as there is against the guys from the west. However, once the tanks and things get on the beach, they're in great danger. See, the other end of gold, under the air, and east of the landings, is a casemate like the one in Le Hamel. This H677 casemate is also protected from the seaward side by reinforced concrete, and it too has a gun that can fire all along the beach, but to the west instead of the east. But it's not a 75 gun, it's an 88mm gun. Yep, one of those deadly babies. And it starts taking out the flails, aviaries, and DDs one by one. 50 storms come ashore just west of this, and they take very heavy fire. They have to use the seawall as cover. The situation gradually improves as more of the craft flails and aviaries evacuate. south line leading up to Montfleury would become far. By this time, all ABRE Sherman crabs and what they want to be beach exit lanes 456 are either locked up or trying to recover bogged down. You got that a big deal. Just FYI. Many say it's just one crab since the AK out of action and the after action report says the fifth East units get some help when naval guns hit the defenders in the rear of their strong point, and they managed to cross the seawall, make the lateral road behind the beaches. This gets them to the minefields and fire a perimeter of La Riviere. They're going to have to clear of the enemy. 6 3 hours takes serious fire from the enemy. Not as serious as we hoped. They also have an easier opportunity to silence it. It is a strong point at Outlet and A Company keeps the defenders busy with small ops fire while 3 ABREs close in. The armor here is quite handily available. D Company leaves the beach to go and try to tackle the 4-gun battery at Montfleury. The specialized armor is actually doing pretty well here, thanks to a single crab. Leaves the beach, reaches the lateral road, turns east for a bit towards La Riviere, then south towards Montfleury, flailing the whole time and clearing a path. Thanks to an ABRE with a bridge that crab can cross the crater, the road is now open for vehicles. C Company's land 20 minutes after 8. By 7:50 a.m., units are set back with the assault troops, although 69 at 231st Brigade off the shore. 69 going generally well, 231st having difficulty getting off the beach owing to enemy fire. At 7:20, the naval bombardment ends. The landings on Fino Beach begin this hour, the whole state setback 10 minutes, as I said. The thing is, because the seas are rough with such big waves, launching and attacks is delayed until they're locked on the shore, as I also said. Those 47th Brigade are in fact launched only about 1 kilometer out, and they will swim and drive ashore. Those supporting 8th Brigade are landed right on the beaches themselves. The LCTs bring in the ABREs. When their arrival of the assault waves onto the beach meant that their landing craft touched down amongst the beach obstacles instead of ahead of them. On tremendous problems on the whole, the combination of rocks, beach obstacles, and tide meant that there was no perfect time to land. The timing of the landing was therefore compromised. The craft would touch down in between high and low tides, allowing the greatest number of beach obstacles to be visible and therefore avoidable, whilst giving the infantry and tanks the shortest area over the beach to cross. In spite of aerial bombing by both medium and heavy bombers, naval bombardment, and the artillery shooting from the LCTs at sea, German defenses around Juneau were still very active, just waiting out the storm with concrete and steel bunkers. Then they emerged when the assault landing craft actually approached the beaches and hit the par the machine guns at quarters. They concentrate their heavier weapons on the LCTs behind them. Note what I just said. The assault teams coming in for their armor. The light green and red was the armor. The Royal Winnipeg Rifles arrived at 7:49 first to land, before any of their armor supported. That is not supposed to happen. In fact, the armor is supposed to be landed 5 minutes before the infantry. So the DBs of the 1st Hussars, crabs from the 22nd Dragoons, and the ABREs of the Royal Engineers are not here, busy attacking the German defenses and giving cover and fire to the exposed troops. Winnipeg Rifles must fight their own way ashore, which obviously leads to high casualties. And the ABREs, in fact, are a full half-hour late in arriving. As the landing craft went astern after unloading, the coxswains could do nothing to prevent themselves from becoming hopelessly entangled in mines and twisted steel. 20, leading 24 vessels were lost or damaged, among a total of 90 out of 306 impaled on Juneau that morning. Close artillery support on all of the British landings was to be provided by Royal Marines manning obsolete Centaur tanks, mounting 95mm howitzers. These proved legally unseaworthy in landing craft. Scores capsized that were lost. Only 6 of 40 intended to support the Canadians reached the shore. Winnipeg Rifles D Company lands to the right on light green and moves to take out some concrete casemates laying down enfiladed fire. D Company lands on the left and tries fighting its way off the beaches through hidden machine gun nests and some roofs. Only 7 of the DBs from A Squadron, Canadian 6th Armor Regiment, make right out by geography. At 7:55, Queen's own rifles land on Nad White. The DBs are late here as well, arriving just after the first infantry does. It is A and B companies that lead the assault. They get hit straight off the bat. B is hit from WN-28, since they land right in front of Vernier, which is like 200 meters east of where they plan to land. They land in front of a seawall with a group of pillboxes. They have to beach, the only shelter under the seawall. The beach machine gun fire, causing heavy casualties, and making the beach literally with dead. B has the misfortune of also being within range of that east-facing 88 at Corsul. Once undercover, though, close in on the defense posts, hit them with grenades and Sten guns, and silence them one by one. This will soon be helped a lot by the tanks coming ashore to mop up, allowing the infantry to head into Vernier. I'm going to create the time for it now for a personal story from San Francisco. B Company takes and inscribes a prayer book from one of the Germans defending pillboxes on the seawall who's just been killed. In 1950, he returns into the German's family and gets a reply from a soldier's mother. We lost 5 children. Our skills are left. The war took all that we possessed, including 5 children. In this letter, you find a photo of my son. Take this as a souvenir of the German comrade who only saw dead was in the depth of his heart and for the foe. But life does go on, even amid the carnage. There are civilians down the road waiting for a bus. A cafe 100 meters off the beach is even open and selling wine a couple hours from now. To B Company's side, A storms the shore, also sprinting across the beach and also taking fire, but with much less intensity than B, who are running right at the guns. Most of them make it over the seawall and into the open field beyond. It had been a hard race, as each man saw his own route to safety, but there was little security to be found on the open ground behind the beach. It was there their worst struggles began. The area was covered in mines, being sprayed with machine gun fire. Orders had the eastern approach to Vernier covered, and each time the troops attempted to regroup or push forward, they were forced to ground by concentrated fire or suffered casualties from the mines. In fact, A Company takes 50% casualties in the first 15 minutes of action. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Not too sure. 7:24 a.m. The infantry run the final few meters to the beach is in progress. The DB tanks, 31 of 40 that have made it all the way to the shore, have touched sand and are climbing their way up to the beach. Well, those who have not had their engines ground when they're drifting, but their guns are still pretty useful against the enemy until the time to come in to swamp them. Seeing into the future, 23 of these DBs end up surviving the landing. 7:25, 8-hour sword. 8 brigade assault companies land on Queen, Red, and White beaches, backed by the armor of $27 Brigade, specialized types of 79 Armors Division. The DBs are supposed to land just before the infantry and the specialized armor, but the heavy seas have slowed their approach, and all 3 more or less arrive at the same time. Men begin dropping, enemy machine gun fire hits the new arrivals. On Queen White, A Company first south flank touches down by the strong point Cod. They take heavy casualties. Commander is killed, actually. They begin moving to their right towards the Mer, clearing the houses along the beach. C Company lands beside them and attacks Cod. This is actually supposed to be hit by 2nd East Yorks. They land to the left on Queen Red. South flanks B Company, the follow-up, lands right in front of Cod, left them where they land. They throw themselves into a frontal assault on the wire and concrete. They too lose their commander, and even
Cool.
Seems like the huge bombardment by air and by sea did not have the desired effect. In fact, the aerial preparation official record says of the nearly 3,000 bombs, this reduces entirely, mainly because of low clouds, which caused the fear of tanks going their own men. In a sense, some officers felt the D-Day, the strict timetable and reliance on a massive pre-assault bombardment. It was not unlike a battle of 1916 or 1917. One recalled the horror of being locked into the artillery timetables of meticulously planned large battles. These invariably left the senior commanders no scope for exploitation. If you found a gap in the enemy defenses, adherence to the artillery program, which rarely could be altered, effectively stopped any personal initiative. Saw and casted shadows on our artillery and armored commanders. Those genuinely believed that in their hands they had the panacea which would protect us, the infantry, from the terrible slaughter of 1916. Instead, they put us in straight. In fact, Shane told Rennie he could expect as much as 80% casualties in his assault battalion. Rennie did not tell the veterans. The LCTs carrying the artillery regiments had been busy blasting away at the shoreline with their 105mm guns. They're taking heavy fire as well. Of the 18 craft that come in with the big guns next hour, 5 are wrecked by obstacles, 3 more from mines, and 6 from fire. As for the sappers, none these total exit lanes from the beaches has no by now. It will be a full hour from each hour before the first launch begins.
By now, an increasing number of civilians across the world are having their first encounter with the Allied often have prepared. Great commanders have told their men to be cautious in sea. Fear, or they agree with the Allies of hostility towards the citizens of the soldier. The standard commanders are also somewhat on edge because the actions of both sides are quite a mix of surprise and suspicion. Worst thing that anyone has noticed is that the man is sleeping. Some of them call the captains demons. Others refer to them as giants or huge devils. Americans come from the wealthiest country in the world. There's good food, military training, and public children, and children, or often different. That's not to mention the helmets and camouflage face paints, which obscure their faces from the the locals of the assistant headquarters company, 507 infantry regiment, U.S. 87th Air Force. They were ambushed, crowd shortly after 2:30 a.m. 12 was killed, 7 flying air blowout, leading hard to the border. Followed, infantry bombs. The lucky company was landed on solid ground and caught up with branches of trees. Other marches caught. Fortunate ones, splashing around and freezing cold water up to their thumbs. Unfortunate ones, let them be burned down with soaking parachute and walking shot. Those are the better safe ones. Now, we still have to go welcome to the country. So, I don't think it's something to have first. I put it as a 6. Prior to all night that sounds of planes and explosions, and waiting by my protection call. She tells me to go down to the school courtyard, which is full of soldiers, blacking faces right before the forts. Asking if there are series of questions and they're hungry. Are there any jobs there? So, surprised and all that. Honest. Those who are falling in the swamp shiver in their teeth and chatter. All of the houses are like large wood fires. Peasants take out some cold down their roofs. And sit in spaces. Soldiers get played to the food. Black something to eat and food like that. Dead. Marvelous things on their sides. Charged, kids, matches, shooting, cigarettes. The Americans, enormous right now. And always June 6th. Last day,
knows the Allied troops, German higher command is pretty much still in the dark about what is going on.
The new concept of Coast Guard troop is that isn't even have any way of going. A lot of their communication can be control. The Burschkatz office and Rommel's office still operates only on the information of a series of airborne landings has happened.
But Speidel finally calls his boss in Germany at 7:30 a.m. He tells Rommel it's not confirmed that this is the big one, but Rommel decides to return immediately to France, gets dressed, and orders his car be walked around. He has a drive of 16 or 17 hours ahead of him, during which time he will be unable to communicate for the most part. Closer to the coast, a few minutes before 8 a.m., General Marks does get the news of landings, and that they are major. He realizes the 2,000 reserves he sent out from Khan a couple hours ago were sent in the wrong direction. Desperately needed on the coast. Whether he can reach them by radio makes him certain.
And if we can, we're going to get to this. We shall see when we return to the 9th hour of the
CBS 12 News, Bob Dawson. We've now been nearly 2 hours.
I'll be right back. No, I don't.
Radio phenomenon.